We took Grandma skiing again this winter for the first time in 10 years. It had been on her list of things that she wanted to try again. So we found a place where she could go into an adaptive ski chair and go up and down the mountain. And she now wants to try it again.
And we have this king-size mattress. We strap it to the back of his truck. And he's unstrapping it. All of a sudden, he's catapulted out of the trunk onto the ground. It was scary and
I would have liked to see that.
We cried at first, and then I laughed my own off.
I'd have to say, it was when I was about 8 years old, I had seen the original Tales from the Crypt movie. I didn't think it was all that bad till I actually turned out the lights and tried to go to sleep that night. I couldn't stop thinking about the scene where the zombie pulled out his killer's heart and actually put it on the desk, and it was there beating on the desk. That was pretty gross.
Just kind of pushes you down. So I go on it with my goggles and like my weirdly loose bathing suit. So I go down the thing and I was like, oh yeah, I'm like so brave because I have like a fear of heights. So I go down the thing and I didn't realize how long it was, but I think it was like a 16-foot cliff. So when I crawl in there, I get like the worst whiplash, and I lose my goggles and the bottom of my swim pants.
My proudest moment was the opening night of the play that I directed, because we had all worked so hard and I just couldn't wait for everyone's friends and family to see the show. And I felt really proud of myself because of how I had grown as a director and how I was bringing this vision to life. And it just felt really right, like it felt I was
to the desert for one night with a bunch of their friends, and we spent the night there. But during the middle of the night, these soldiers came in like jeeps with like guns and stuff, and they're like, "What are you doing out here?" And they kind of were like, "Oh, we're just having like a fun trip out here."
My most crazy memory was when I canoed out to an island in the dark with my friends. It was pitch black, couldn't see anything, and we canoed for like 30 minutes out to an island and then camped there in the cold for like 3 nights. It was crazy, but it was so beautiful and so much fun.
Gray mini skirt with pink pumps.
Wait, I had the same outfit! And anyway.
And the little white ruffle socks that you fold over. That was the style back then.
Wait, we moved from Florida, first of all.
Yes, so it was in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
It was outside school, so the stairwell was outside. So I thought I was so cool. And I must have missed the first step, but I tumbled down the entire stairs in my
I was a whitewater rafting guy, and it had been a long day and a very hot day. We went out to raft, and going through the rapids, being splashed felt amazing. And most of the time, the goal was to stay inside the boat. So it was really silly when I got out of the boat.
She was laughing.
Splashing and laughing.
I have to say, was crossing back into the United States after being on the trail south of the border for a few weeks. Yeah, the first place in sight was a McDonald's, and boy did that Big Mac taste good.
And I was with some friends who were bad influences, and somebody had the idea, and I think he had done it before, to go for a swim in a water tower. But there's a ladder that goes up the side, and I don't know, it's 50, 60 feet up, and you climb up the ladder, and there's a hatch at the top, like a submarine door hatch, and you crank it open, and you look inside, and depending on how much water's in the tower, how far down it is, the water was pretty close to the top, maybe 10 feet from the top. It's pitch black in there, the water is freezing cold, and I'm not a good swimmer, and so I throw that down in the water and jump in, which was insane because you go way down deep and then come back up again. And we were in there for,
Switch it quickly and then slam on the gas.
So cold.
And I ended up hitting the car in front of me. Like it wouldn't reverse at all, and like everything kept spinning and it was really loud. And then I like just backed up and there was only a dent. But I had
finally
to go
got there, you broke the news to me. I'm like, whatever, because you said, don't worry, I got you set up, nice flat area. When we were moving our tent, there's a huge root under my portion of the tent. I was sleeping on a root for like the past like half week. And it was on a slope.
And on top of that, to replace the stakes, I just sharpened a bunch of like wooden logs, and like John stepped on one of them and it like broke, and John was like, "Oh my god, I think I broke one of the stakes." But it was just I had these bootleg stakes.
We lost something in the filter system, so we opened it up, and in there was a dead frog. We weren't entirely sure if it was dead, but it wasn't moving, and so I picked it up, and I sat it down, and literally sat it down, like it was sitting, like.
And she was, how old was she? Was like 4 or 5? She was like, there's a scary man.
The craziest memory
God, I
was
kept
when I was
hearing
on
that
a
from
small little
my
island off the coast of Thailand.
Scaring me.
Decided to go on some random boat to go parasailing, and they were basically filling the gas tank of the boat with giant barrels of gas that were sitting in the middle of the boat. Super sketchy, super small little boat, but it was such a crazy experience, and the views were the best.
And suddenly I'm walking with my friend and we hear this loud scream, and so we all start crying, and we look down and it's a massive frog that's the size of like 3 of my hands. And so she named the frog Fatness Ever Frog. And that frog still terrifies me.
Oh my god,
to this
dolphins,
day.
let's go
It's the
swim
biggest
with
frog I've
them.
ever known.
So they run out into the ocean to swim with dolphins, and we're watching them for a little bit like these guys are fools. And this woman comes up that like lived there at Myrtle Beach, and she was like, hey, you should call your friends back. And we were like, why? And she's like, those aren't dolphins, those are either sharks or whales.
It was like hours and hours, and it was nighttime, and then suddenly my mom comes up and she's like, how's dad? And I was like, I don't know what's going on. She's like, he's literally been in an accident in the driveway, and look out the window, my dad's been T-boned, there's like police, and I was just like,
was on the day of my baptism. That day, the sunlight tore through the rain clouds above the church, and a gentle rain came sprinkling down all at once. It was as though the heavens were opening up to welcome me
I
home.
slid down the stairs with my socks on, going down to the basement. Oops, slid down three.
My favorite tasty memory was when I went to Italy and got to try gluten-free pizza for the first time.
Try to frame it on her ex-husband who left. But everybody in the town, she remembers everyone in the town, there was like on the news, and everyone's like, oh yeah, she blew up the house. Yeah, she definitely blew up the house.
6th grade, and I had to call my mom, and of course she brought my aunt, and I was really embarrassed. And that's like, it's like a story that we share during our family holiday every year. I really hate it.
Lunch had it the worst, because we were in there scheming and eating our chocolate chip cookies and drinking our chocolate milks. And so we go into class, and again, the details are lost on me, but we organized like a big march out, and we all walked to the principal's office, like I'm telling you, like 80 to 90% of the class. And I really don't remember the true outcome of that, but I do know that she was, maybe not immediately, but she was let go after that.
I'm so excited to zip across that, and then I got on the zip line, and then halfway through, I think I was too light as a kid, so I ended up stopping right in the middle, in the middle of air, on top of a raging river, hundreds of feet above.
So you check in, and he's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we said, "We're taking a drive." And he looked at us like we were crazy because it was snow-covered, icy roads. And he says, "If you're not out in 14 days or whatever it was, we'll come and look for you." So we went in, and there's nobody around. There's a small town that's a couple of days' drive north. There's some indigenous tribes and areas that you can kind of go through. But we decided to keep driving inland. And as we were driving inland, one day we noticed that we started to see these caribou. And the more we drove, the more caribou that we saw. And eventually we're driving down the road, this ice-covered road, snow for as far as you could see, flat. And all of a sudden, we had all these caribou on either side of the car in the road, running along with us.
We're just
like
sitting there on the metal beam, and there's like mud and pricker bushes below us. And in the distance, there's a golf court driving like lined up, just like we're straight in their view. We weren't supposed to be there. We were literally just wandering around aimlessly. And so we got scared. We got spooked. We were like, oh,
God. It had taken a real toll on me, and I had been stressing about it so much, but it was finally finished, and I had my first free weekend of the whole semester. and all my friends and I had a picnic in a park, and it was such a nice day. It was such a beautiful spring day, and we went to Trader Joe's. And
in terms of, all right, I've turned in an assignment 44 days late for Mike Minerva, and he gave me 100% on it.
The memory that I have is watching my mother dance with my kids at a wedding to the song Dancing Queen, which is her by far favorite song and one that she used to listen to frequently when I was a kid.
Done that project, and that finally was free in a way to do what I wanted to do.
One time I snuck onto a military boat with my friends at 2 a.m, but then one of my friends touched one of the weapons on the boat and the alarms went off, and we ran like hell off of this blaring ship for like 20 minutes straight, like into the night, until we regrouped at the car.
I was in Boston, and I thought it was really smart to parallel park on a hill in my SUV between two
That's what the fish was.
cars.
But it looked like some prehistoric creatures, the weirdest thing. And like I said, it had a thick skull. Captain Bob goes over and says, "Watch this." And he knocks on the head of this thing, and it reverberates. It was so weird, and like I said, it had this
beautiful
big
memory of
fanning
mine was when my mom and I visited my grandma in the nursing home. My grandma was in her final days and was struggling with picking up her spoon to eat her applesauce. My mom carefully picked up the spoon and began to feed her. The circle of life was made particularly clear to me in that moment.
I was like, if I jump off of it, I'm gonna fly. So I got up there and I jumped off of it, and I did not fly, and I bit down on the front. I bit down on my tongue and it was bleeding. And the smart thing I decided to do was like, okay, I'm bleeding, what do I do? So I went and I put Band-Aids in my tongue.
And Joe freaks out, because also the fish freaks out, because it's like, where the hell am I? And oh, that was such a funny moment. He was so paranoid after that of fish flying out of the ocean at him. And if I'm not mistaken,
I'd never heard anything like that. And I looked up into the sky. Every single grain of sand in that desert, I realized, was like a human being in the ocean of consciousness. This is what the core is. It's every single grain of sand in the desert of life. That is when I found out about the core.
And was splashing and laughing and floating alongside the rafts as we floated down the river.
In the pit of the Killers concert, like right in front of the stage, and hearing like the first 3 notes of Mr. Brightside start, and everybody around you just goes absolutely insane. That was probably the most joy
beach.
I've ever
My
felt.
girlfriends and I are walking down the beach, and all of a sudden in Sandy Hook, and we see Gary and his friends.
Drivers are very aggressive. I witnessed like a couple drivers like lay on the horn for like a minute long. Our Uber driver was one of those
of
people.
my wife in her wedding dress on our wedding day, which was December 26th, so it was chilly outside. But I was so love struck when I saw her that I didn't even notice.
And then the Uber driver starts speeding up. We all look at my coworker. I say to him quietly, "That was our Uber driver," and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was like the cars."
So yeah, when we arrived, we were also like culturally shocked because at the time, like there was sun, but the environment was definitely different. When we saw squirrels, we were like thinking they're so exotic, and we're like, oh my god, it's my first time seeing a squirrel. I want to take so many pictures. I still have it on my phone, but I deleted some of them.
In Vermont, in Stowe, Vermont, where we took like a gondola up, and it took like 20 minutes to make it to the top, and we got stopped a few times, and it was just closing this little waffle stand, and they make these Belgian waffles with like crusted like sugar on it, and it was the best thing I've ever ate.
And make dinner out in the snow and sleep in the Jeep, wake up every couple hours so we wouldn't freeze to death. And then every day we'd get up and go a little bit farther, and then we did this for a couple of days, and we'd run into these caribou along the way.
Tastiest
Ended up
memory
being
is from when I was studying abroad in Barcelona, Spain, and my friends and I went on a weekend trip to Geneva, Switzerland. And while we were in Geneva, we went on a chocolate tour, which essentially was going around to all these different chocolate shops and trying their unique desserts. And we had a tour guide. He was like a local college student, and he knew a lot about the city and its history. And he took us on a boat across the river. It was just such a beautiful day to be around and to be tasting all these different chocolates.
I like see out of the corner of my eye this like kind of brown and like greenish like like I don't know, shape just like emerge. And because I'm in the ocean and I'm already freaked out, I was like, ah! And I like kind of like smacked, like kind of like hit it like that, and like just swam away as fast as I could because something was coming. I thought it was like chasing me.
I had my sandwich every day when we worked as lifeguards at the beach. Eventually I got so mad that I basically got a huge, gigantic jellyfish out of the ocean and stuck it in his bag. Well, I thought that problem was solved, so I thought. But about 2 weeks later, he told me that he had been taking small jellyfish out of the ocean and rinsing them off and putting them in my sandwiches. Yeah, we never get even.
Times Square was pretty overwhelming, and funny story. There was like these like ladies just like walking around fully naked with just like body paint on them in Times Square, and from as a person who came from China, which was much more like laid back, that was like a culture shock. That was like a major culture shock for me.
Porch in the late afternoon in Spain, with Abuela and Nuria and you and Annalise was making you laugh, and you were giggling and she was laughing, and it was just a beautiful afternoon.
When I was out on the Chesapeake Bay in my boat, we were cruising around Sunset, and next thing you know, we saw some dolphins, and they were jumping in the water, and before we knew it, we were completely surrounded by pods of dolphins all around the boat, and they were swimming and jumping and playing, and they were moving around, and we just kept following them, engines off, and just watched them play.
The route is like, it first takes you down from New York City to like Philadelphia, and then Washington DC, and then come back up again to like to see the Niagara, because that's like a popular tourist spot and stuff. But it's because it's like so brief.
Mr. Prudente walks up to Senor Montegrasso and starts speaking in Spanish real quickly, and then he walks away. And then Senor Montegrasso has like the Office moment. He like turns to us and he says, "I don't know what he just said to me."
A very silly memory I have is of this past winter when all my kids came to ski with me for my birthday, and they decided that they would try to swap skis and snowboards and make it down the mountain, and watching them was quite entertaining.
And I get more into it and everything, and the principal was good friends with the girl I was running against, so he got mad and started like chasing me across the stage trying to get the mic. And I ended it with, "And Live from New York is Saturday night," and then I kind of like threw the mic at him and ran away because I was scared. I got a standing ovation though, which was pretty sick.
And then the next year.
The next year I ran again, and they made me run again because I got disqualified the first time. I ran again, and my speech was, I don't think I really need to give a speech, and then I won, which was pretty cool.
And so we were like
went to Pete and Elders recently.
and suddenly
It was a little harder than I expected, you know, especially because the crust kind of tastes like cardboard. Wouldn't say it was too tasty, but definitely not gonna forget eating that whole pizza at Pete and Elders.
Henrik Carlos Park, who is an X-Game medalist, an Olympic medalist for skiing, and I was trying 450s onto this rail, and I took a few hard falls, but then eventually I landed it and rode away, and I've never been more proud of myself before.